It's time to talk spoilers for Overlord, which came out this weekend. A little post-Halloween horror fest. Honestly, one of the better horror films I've seen this year. I saw this clickbait article on Twitter that that talked about how this has been a bad year for horror, and there's just no way it was written in good faith. No way. It's like there's been way too many great horror films this year. Hereditary is incredible, like Oscar caliber great. I've actually seen Suspiria twice. I thought Suspiria was wonderful, although it is long, and I understand if it's not everybody's cup of tea, but that's actually one of my favorite films of the year, Suspiria. So you should go check that out. I might actually do a Twitch review of Suspiria. We will see. We will see. Alright, I'm going to play some gun game while I talk about this, because I'm bad at it, and, you know, my poor gameplay will serve to make you feel better about your life. I'm here to boost your ego. That's what I'm here to do. This is a spoilers review. I'll try to mention that throughout in case you join. In case you join in the middle of the review. So I saw Overlord on Thursday night. It was kind of a late showing, and it was in IMAX. Definitely go see this movie in IMAX if you check it out in theaters. Because the sound design is incredible, and you really need an experience like IMAX to get the full impact. As I mentioned in my last review, it's a J.J. Abrams joint, which means there's top-notch technicians working on sound design.
Joke's on you.
And it shows. It's really wonderful. And you know, even though a professional's eye tells me that there were some budgetary limitations on this movie because some of it takes place inside of a house. A large portion of it actually takes place indoors in kind of confined spaces. It looks and feels like a big budget film. So yeah, spoilers for Overlord. This movie is absolutely brutal, and I don't think they undersold this, but you know, in the trailers they portray this movie that feels to me like a revisionist movie about soldiers or paratroopers landing during D-Day and clearing out, you know, advanced territory for invading troops that are landing on the beach at Normandy. It, you know, if you only watch one of the early trailers, like, you might not even know it's a genre film. It's, you know, it looks and feels like Saving Private Ryan. It has that level of big budget polish, and I'd have to go back and watch all the trailers, but I know that in you know, to see exactly what they were selling, but in I know that in some of the trailers they really only give you a tease that there's something supernatural or something sci-fi going on. You know, you see this like dark figure that might be cloaked in oil or something like that. You don't really know. God, I'm so bad at this game. So you don't really know. You know that something's going on that probably isn't strictly historical, but you know, I can totally imagine some people going into this movie thinking it is a historic film or something along the lines of Band of Brothers, and it ends up being a brutal horror film with lots of made-up stuff in it. So what exactly was made up? Well, it's kind of easier to say what was not made up. But, yeah, the movie starts with this invasion.
That's a kill.
Where these guys are landing by plane, and then the plane gets shot down. And this is actually one of the best sequences of the movie. Like they go through and absolutely, you know, it's terrifying watching these guys be shot at. in this plane, and the sides exploding, and then ultimately an engine blows up, and the plane fails, and these paratroopers are forced out of the plane, and it doesn't get any better on the ground. Like I would say there's this sequence. I'm spoiling this movie, by the way. So there's this sequence in the movie where they land on the ground and they're in the middle of a firefight, and then I'm not sure what the military terminology is, but the squad or the platoon or whatever end up trying to reconstitute themselves. Those who survived are trying to get together, and we see somebody executed by the Nazis. We see we see some pretty brutal stuff, and this to me is some of the scariest stuff in the movie. Like, they're snooping around outside, and it is pretty terrifying. It is pretty terrifying. I mean, that is some of the best tension in the entire film, is just going through the woods. And there's a scene where this one guy is talking, and mid-sentence, you're just getting to know him. You're just getting the first glimpse of who his character is. In mid-sentence, he steps on a mine, and it absolutely obliterates him. There's no body, there's nothing. And we meet the lead, a character named Boyce, and really in the impact, from that explosion. His friend explodes, and then we meet the main character, who is in shock. So so they carry on, and they go to this French village, and they meet a girl along the way who leads him there, and this French village is occupied by the Nazis, and so you see some pretty atrocious things outside of the horrors of war pretty early on. This village is occupied, and you see some Nazis occupying this village just shoot some people randomly, or for some minor infraction, and then you see the captain, or the leader of the Nazis, comes in, and apparently he has some morbid arrangement, some predatory arrangement with the beautiful French girl that plays in this movie, where she offers him sexual favors or something, and in return they don't harm her, and they don't harm her nephew, I believe. That character is Chloe, and she is portrayed by Mathilde Olivier, who I thought was fantastic. She was really a wonderful find, and she was really great in this film. So anyway, they hole up in her house, and the whole time they're in there, I'm terrified because they're being so loud. This kind of actually stuck out to me, how loud they're being, and the whole anytime anybody talks, I'm just worried like Nazis are going to hear you, and you have this 5 American soldiers holed up in
my dead bad guy
in this attic of this French lady's house, and they're just like screaming at each other, like they're being so loud. Like I don't know how Nazis right out the door wouldn't hear them. So maybe that's intentional, or maybe it's one of the film's shortcomings. I'm not sure. But in any case, I was on edge the whole time, and there's some pretty horrible things that happen. Boom!
Awesome. Kill.
Once I get to the shotgun, I know I'm going to be all right in gun game. I know I'm going to be all right. But getting through the revolver and that semi-automatic pistol, it's tough. It's tough to get through that. So they end up in this French lady's house, and there are these horrible sounds coming from her bedroom, or her aunt's bedroom, or somebody's in there, and they sound like somebody is dying, or is inhuman, or you don't know what's happening. And all of our French friend Chloe says is that it's her aunt, and she's very sick. Well, we get our first glimpse of this aunt, and she looks absolutely putrid. Like she's covered in these like boils that are just popping, and her skin looks like it's been it's like she had smallpox and then they boiled her alive. Like it looks absolutely horrifying, and she never talks. We never really get to meet her. She's just this beast. See if I can get this guy. Boom! Boom! God, how am I not hitting him? Alright, so yeah, man, that ant is one of the more disgusting things in this movie, filled with disgusting things. And I would say, spoilers for Overlord throughout this, I would say this movie's gore is on par with Event Horizon, if you've ever seen that film. Truly brutal, truly gory, and if you're not up for that, I would skip it, or just listen to me. So yeah, they hang out for a while, and then you find out their mission, or they restate their mission, is actually to take down this tower that's like a comms tower, so they can destroy their communication while the rest of the group invades from land. Oh, golly. I always feel like I'm just one bullet off from winning those duels. I'm really not very good at this game. So, oops, screwed that up. Yep, there we go. So, yeah, so they have to go to this tower. So, anyway, they hole up for a while. They're trying to think of a plan. They get some details from Chloe, and but they don't really know what's going on. We get this creepy scene where the Nazi captain visits Chloe, and we find out about this horrible arrangement I mentioned earlier, and he makes some threats about sending her nephew, I think, to the tower so that the doctor can deal with her. So you get this idea that there's like a Nazi scientist, which is a fun trope in many films. Yes, boom. Hello, shotgun. And I'm really not doing good. So there's a Nazi doctor out there. Something horrifying is happening, and we don't know what it is yet, right? So we get our first peek at what's happening when Boyce goes solo. I can't even remember why he goes solo, but he goes to this place and sneaks inside, and he kind of enters through the sewers, I think, and or he finds his way inside, and he sneaks around, and it is absolutely disgusting in this place. There's all sorts of cells where people are being kept. It's like a just Chamber of Horrors kind of vibe where he's going through and seeing horrible things. And man, one of my favorite shots of the whole film is where he goes and he hears this woman whispering to him. She's saying, help me, help me. And he goes over and she's behind this this little curtain, kind of like she's laying on a gurney, and and the curtain's like a small privacy curtain. So he pulls the curtain back, and you see her very sick face. She looks very pale, and like she has the worst virus imaginable. And she's saying, "Help me!" And he pulls back the rest of the curtain, and all you see is her spinal column. That's it. There's no body. There's just her head on a spinal column, and then something is stimulating it to keep her alive. Like, it's absolutely just beyond fucked up. So it is crazy, and I jumped out of my seat when I saw it. It's one of the best scares of the movie. So you go around and you see these like chambers. Like there's this like sack of above like a pool of like black oil or something, or black fluid, and something is writhing around on the inside. And so Boyce cuts this bag open, and there's a person inside that's like encased in this fluid, or just you you know, as soon as they say there's like as soon as they hint that there's like a Nazi doctor, like, you know that there's something horrible going on, and that they're going to amplify it for the purposes of this horror film. But it's pretty gross. Like, all these effects I thought were awesome, and this sort of discovery is, you know, none of it's like, I hesitate to say that it's something I haven't seen before, because it does feel so familiar, but everything in it is very well done. You know, everything in it is effective. So even if it's feels familiar, feels like something you've seen before, it's still very effective. Like, at no time is this film not effective in terms of how to outgore you. If I can get this guy, ow, ow, ow. I am really bad with this revolver. If I don't kill somebody early on, like, I'm talking, you know, if I don't kill somebody really early on, then I'm just done. I'm just gonna putt around with the pistol and suck, and everybody's gonna get better. You know, everybody's gonna get better stuff than me. I'm just gonna die. Oh, did I get a kill? Yes, I did. Alright, so... yeah, so Boyce goes around, he's doing some horrible, horrible shit. You realize there's human experimentation, and then, you know, at one point you see, like, a stack of diseased people. They're still alive, but they look like the same thing that's been done to them is what was done to Chloe's aunt, or Chloe's aunt, if you will. So they're covered in just, you know, pustules and diseased and horrible, and so they get dumped on the side of the road, and you don't get too close of a glimpse of this, but these guys come out with flamethrowers and just cook them alive, like, just roast them. It's horrifying. So I think I'm gonna end up sticking with this pistol the whole time. Can't manage to kill anybody else. I'm not any better at this when I'm not talking. So don't think that my commentary is preventing from being good. I'm never good. So yeah, so there's just this horrible stuff. There's something horrible going on inside, and there are you know, moral horrors happening outside. The Nazi captain is, like, you know, trying to force himself on Chloe, and then at a certain point, when Boyce is there, he can't take it anymore. So they you know, beat him up and string him up, and then there's this one character who's kind of long blonde hair, and he's got a beard, and he just looks sort of grizzled, and really one of the best characters in the movie, I think. And he's portrayed by Wyatt Russell, who I just remembered halfway through the movie is Kurt Russell's son, I think. And he looks very similar to Kurt Russell, so he's kind of bringing these almost the Thing vibes to all this, you know. Not that there's that level of mutation, but there is some you know, interesting perversions of humanity in this movie. So yeah, they beat him up. Some horrible stuff happens. When Boyce is at the tower by himself, he finds one of the paratroopers that never regrouped with them, and there's this horrifying scene where this paratrooper is just waking up, and there's like this thing. If you've ever seen after stomach surgery or something like that, they vacuum seal a hose to your stomach so that they can drain all of the pus or, you know, whatever your body is leaking and allow it to heal properly. So this poor paratrooper has this thing in his stomach, and then Boyce has to pull it out of him, and it is truly disgusting. Very effective, very, very well directed, and, you know, something so simple that's all done practically is just, you know, totally cringeworthy. And while they're doing this, you see, Boyce hides and hopefully isn't discovered, and you see this Nazi doctor who kind of looks like a fatter Himmler. He's got the little round glasses and whatnot. He comes in and has this sort of vial of Nazi goo or whatever, and he injects it into a dead body, and it reanimates the body. This is not like a live person. This is a dead body, right? And it reanimates the body, and the body just starts to go berserk. Some cool sort of homages or permutations of Reanimator in there, like when they reanimate the big when they reanimate the big guy in Reanimator, the guy who I think was Arnold Schwarzenegger's body double in Terminator, something like that. There's something I remember from a DVD commentary in there. But yeah, there's a little bit of that. It's kind of shaky and convulsing and sort of like they're having a standing seizure, and then something terrible is happening. So yeah, so they regroup, and then these guys have to figure out how they're going to bring an assault against somehow against. This guy's gonna kill me. Yep, son of a gun. They're going to bring a frontal assault against this tower. They have to knock out this tower. So they devise this plan to go inside, and they basically they basically capture this Nazi on a motorcycle with a sidecar, and they tape the. This is pretty clever, I think. They tape the Nazis. Golly, they tape the Nazis' hands to the gas and the brake or whatever, and then they tape his mouth over so he can't talk, and they send him towards the gates at the base of this tower where there's this little Nazi protective squad or whatever, and so they let this guy inside, and they're like, "Hey, dude, you're not talking. What's going on with you?" And they go over and pull the tape off his mouth, and connected to the tape is the pin of a grenade, and the grenade is in this guy's mouth. So by taking the tape off, they destroy this guy, and then that grenade sets off or blows up the rest of the explosive and destroys the stronghold. At they destroys all the dudes. I don't know. I could probably think of a smarter word, but the dudes at the front of the gate. So yeah, so they get inside and they go on this mission, and everything in the third act, I think it's well executed, but narratively for me, I don't think it really went far enough. But basically, what we see is that. Oh, let me back up first. So they have this scene in when they're still at Chloe's house in her attic. They spend all this time in her attic, and there is a Nazi guard that comes in, and they end up putting two in the chest of one of the paratroopers, and he dies, and it's this emotional scene that's sort of reminiscent of when Giovanni Ribisi, his character, dies.
Hostile down.
In Saving Private Ryan, where he's got like a sucking chest wound, and there's nothing they can do but hold his hand and let him bleed out, basically. At least I don't have that shotgun anymore. Let's see if I can make some progress here.
Drop.
Boom. Not bad. So, how did he beat me? I guess I'm just putting bullets into the dirt. So yeah, anyway, so this guy dies, and then Boyce, who happens to have smuggled one of these syringes away from the Nazi stronghold, takes it and reanimates his friend, And so the reanimated friend, you know, just turns into this monster slowly. You know, it's like injecting him with like super testosterone and growth hormone and like all sorts of like, you know, stuff that's so strong it's making his DNA mutate, and you know, his bones start to grow out of his collar, and he just becomes this monster. And he, you know, his purpose is to be a berserker, I'm guessing. So why is that guy not dying? I don't understand. Let's see if I can kill this dude. So anyway, his friends end up having to kill him. His friends end up having to put him down, which is sad, but very cool transformation, and that actor must have had a ball playing out. So also during this, the Nazi captain has been a hostage, or not really a hostage, but just, you know, a captive of these American paratroopers. He gets involved, he gets loose, he skirmishes with everybody, and he ends up getting shot in the face, and he gets away. So he ends up running away, and he runs back to the Nazi stronghold at the base of the tower, and he goes inside and just starts, like, he's covering his face, you can't see what's going on, you know, you can't see what happened to him, and he stabs himself with the syringes, like just starts like plowing syringes, and you hear the Nazi doctor say, you know, what are you doing? We've never tested this on the living. So he kind of makes clear that until that time, the serum had only been used to reanimate the dead, and so now it's being put into a living person. And he doses himself like 3 times, you know, so he's also going overboard. Then he reveals his face, and this dude has a straight-up shotgun, like a slug, blasted through the left side of his face, like a gaping hole. And then this serum slowly helps that sort of grow back over the rest of the movie. You see like extra teeth growing and all this like creepy stuff. So yeah, that is really effective, and I thought that actor did a great job. And you know, inevitably, you know, our sort of Wyatt Russell's character, who plays a guy named Ford, he's sort of morally compromised at a point in the film, and you know, not much you can do there, but you got to find a way to kill that guy, right? Because he tortured somebody, and you know, he's doing these sort of, not a bad guy, but he's doing these sort of morally great things, right? So he's got to die. So the way he dies and redeems himself in the process is have a gun. I'm gonna get rid of this pistol earlier. I'm gonna be stuck with it the whole round. So he ends up injecting himself so that he can fight the Nazi captain, and so he becomes sort of a super soldier as well. That's essentially what's happening. Is these guys are taking a super soldier, like a horror version of a super soldier serum that is very similar to what you know, like Captain America took, and the Red Skull. You know, there's very much like a Marvel vibe to how that mechanic works in Overlord. By the way, spoilers for Overlord throughout this. And, you know, so that stuff is not really new. Not that new is always better. I do think this is well executed and well done. But I think the trailers hinted at, I don't know, maybe it's not fair to say this, but I thought the trailers were very clearly hinting at some sort of like occult activity that the Nazis were doing. And of course, in real life, the Nazis were involved in occult activity. Like Hitler had an interest in the occult and thought that it had some power to fuel his Reich. So, you know, that isn't even like a popular culture invention. That's something that happened in reality, and it's something that's been exploited in many other games and movies, and there was a movie I thought of afterwards that not that many people have seen called Blood Creek. Came out in 2009, and that was directed by Joel Schumacher, and it kind of got dumped, possibly because it is so horrific. Okay, great. It kind of got dumped, but it has a great cast. It stars Michael Fassbender and Henry Cavill, a pre-Superman Henry Cavill, and who else does it have in it? It has Dominic Purcell, and it's got a great little cast, and that really has a great bit of occult mythology related to the Nazis. Michael Fassbender plays a Nazi officer dabbled in the occult. So that stuff is
Shut
awesome.
out.
And I thought they were going to go there in this movie, and they didn't. So they didn't go that far. And what they have there, the idea that the Nazis were coming up with super soldier serum or some sort of berserker stuff. It's well done, but I just think that popular culture has gone so far with, and the Nazis have been portrayed so many times that I kind of was hoping they would take the mythology a little farther than they did in this movie, but still enjoyable nonetheless. There's some good, some of the characters are I thought well fleshed out and really solid. I thought Chloe was a great character. I thought Wyatt Russell's character Ford was a great character. I really liked Boyce, who's played by Jovan Adepo, who you might recognize from Fences, if you saw Fences. Probably not that much crossover between Fences and Overlord, but hell, I watch all these movies, so I recognize eliminated. He really does a fine job. There's some great character development. The secondary and tertiary characters are kind of one note, and some of them feel just cookie cutter, lifted from Band of Brothers or the Pacific. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty solid movie. I can't underscore how brutal it is. So if you're not up for that, just stop it listening to me, 30 minutes into this broadcast, because this movie's not for you. Yeah, I thought the music was good. All the sound design was amazing. The ending I thought was pretty solid. The ending is basically Wyatt Russell's character sacrifices himself and stays behind, and they make a decision to destroy the tech that they've found. It's kind of a commentary on the use of ill-gotten knowledge of the Nazis. You may not know this, but after World War II, some of the scientists in Japan and in Germany who participated in some horrible experiments. These were terrible experiments that should have never happened, but they did happen, and there was knowledge gained from them regarding human physiology and similar things, and many people died in horrific ways to get this knowledge. But this isn't real life. I'm not making this up. And these people, rather than being put on trial for what they were doing, many of them were offered a different option, which was to come to the United States and participate in American research programs in exchange for turning over this information.
Know how this is going to go down.
There's differing schools of thought on this. One camp says might say it's completely unethical to use the fruits of those immoral acts in any capacity, and then there's probably another camp that says these people died in a horrific way, but we did gain information from that. The information was gained from that exists, that we can learn and use it to actually save lives. So you know, I'm kind of, I don't really know where I stand on that. I'm kind of sympathetic to both of those perspectives. But yeah, so
Enemy down.
I wish they would have just went a little farther. One concept that I did find new and just gross and compelling at the same time is that this serum. This is what they were doing with the
Hostile infantry wasted.
pustuled people. What they were doing is they found this serum in the ground. It was like deep within the ground in France, and the French didn't even know about it. But you don't just find it and use it raw. What you have to do is filter it through the human body. So they were using the people of this French town as human filters, and they would run the serum through their bodies and collect it, and then run it again and again, and distill and redistill and redistill until they came up with this ultra powerful serum.
Fresh kill.
And that idea I found horrifying and incredible at the same time. You know, that's truly, you know, truly horrifying that they were using these people up in this way. But that, you know, there's some great stuff in Overlord. Like if you like, you know, if you're up for a brutal horror film, this one delivers on all fronts. It definitely delivers and takes some things forward, some things it's a little conservative on, but all in all, I'd say it delivers, and I think it earns its Rotten Tomatoes score of I think 85%, 84% the last time I checked. I think it definitely earns that. So go check it out, see it in IMAX, and you know, hit me up on Instagram. If you want to tell me what you thought of it. I probably won't be seeing it again. I think once was enough for me. But it's really a good film, and it's great to see horror films like that coming out after Thanksgiving. You know, I'm such a huge fan of the genre. I want horror films to come out every weekend. So, you know, I don't know what that says about me, but I'm gonna kill this guy. Golly. I don't know. Maybe I need to aim for heads. I need to change my strategy up here. I'm not really good at this game. I'm not good. Da da da. You can also come hang out on Reddit if you are a fellow Redditor. You can come and hang out with me and a bunch of other great people at
reddit.com/r/wasted
Shutter. So that's R Shutter. If you want to join me there, I hang out. We had a great little group. I'm trying to think of when I developed the Shutter subreddit. Shutter, if you're not familiar, is like the best streaming service out there. It's $5 a month, and you get an awesome array of horror films. They had such a great lineup this year for. Golly, I'm so bad. How did I not hit that guy? I'm so bad. Boom.
One by dead bad guy.
All right. Am I gonna die? I'm not gonna die yet. Yeah, he definitely killed me. Yeah, come hang out on reddit.com/r/Shudder, SHUDDER. We got a cool little community there of horror fans, and we really congealed and got to know each other during Shudder's Joe Bob Briggs marathon. I don't know if you remember Joe Bob Briggs, but apparently a ton of people do.
Seraph,
A ton of people remember Joe Bob. I love Joe Bob, and I loved his shows, and so he is back on Shudder, and this was like a huge, quote unquote, break the internet moment when he did this streaming marathon a couple of months ago, and apparently it's going to be a regular thing. He's coming back on Thanksgiving Day for another marathon. I think it's is it 24 hours? I think it's a 24-hour marathon. maybe it's 12 hours. I can't remember, but he's coming back, and apparently they have multiple events planned with him, and we've just built a little community around Shudder and around these marathons, which have been so good. And we've got we just talk about horror there all the time. I work in the film industry and work in the horror space, so sometimes I have some cool things to talk about there in advance. And we also hang out on a Discord. There, if you go to our Shudder, we have a Discord that is super active. Like, you can go there. I think we have 1,500 something people in the subreddit, and almost everybody's in the Discord as well. So if you're watching a horror film or you just want to hang out with some cool people who also love horror, you can come hang out in the Discord, and we're there pretty much all the time. So come on by. We have a good time. Yeah, friends. I think that's it for me. Let me see what I want to review next. It's probably going to be Suspiria. So go check out Suspiria if you can, and then come back and let's talk about it.